Thanks, Margaret. I'll do that at the end.
Very wise.
Yeah. Okay, welcome everybody to tonight's resources meeting. We don't have any public session. Any apologies?
That's the trying Councillor White.
Are we happy to receive those?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure. Any declarations of interest for tonight?
Sick.
Minutes of the last meeting? Happy with those?
Those were great.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, minutes of the communications strategy group, we've got 2 copies there, 13th October and 11th December. I'm happy to receive those.
Yeah.
Then to agree them.
Okay, item 5 budgets. So we've got 5.1, so it's A. Right. So page 46. Has anybody got anything on this page?
What, 3 or 46?
3 or 46. No.
No.
Yeah. Page 4 of 46.
No.
Page 5 of 46. No.
No.
Page 6 of 46. No. Robin.
One thing, I mean, there's one roundabout fix, it's there's another roundabout with variance free to all the other roundabouts, their incomes. Is that something we should ask why? Just that one's only 16%, it's all, it might be that it was empty and not used. The other one's 51%, it might be that it was empty and not used, that's why the income's down.
Yes, it was the changeover between 2 contracts.
Yeah, thought that's what it was. I seem to remember a discussion around it, but I thought they asked.
Okay, page 7 of 46. Margaret?
Yeah, thank you. Under the budget heading 249, which is the Cornwalls Meadow toilets and shop mobility, 1085 shop mobility income. I'm sure why is it 735%?
It's income, so Paul budgeted £40 income, which is very low, and we've made £294 income. So
Oh,
not big
okay.
figures, but because it's gone from very
It's a
small.
small amount. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I should have been able to notice that. I'm sorry I didn't.
It's hard, Margaret.
It's a big number when you look at it, and it says
Yeah.
135%.
And we're on appendix A and we're on page 7 of 46.
But it's good news if that means that shop mobility is being used more than we expected, isn't it?
Yeah. Very good. Okay, page 8 of 46. Yeah.
I've got under 251 Chandos Parks, the tennis court rent. Again, that I don't know whether it is obvious from the figures, but it's 0%. Does that mean they just haven't paid it? Or
Yes, I think that we're still waiting for that to come through. Yeah, we're still waiting. We haven't. It's an annual payment.
so it's not unusual that they haven't paid it by this point. No, okay, that's fine.
Do you want to join us at the table, Jodie? You're more than welcome to, because we've got 2 empty chairs up here.
Yeah.
We can, members happy to join you. It makes sense for you to come on, but I didn't want to press you.
Steve likes to join us at the table as well.
Do you want to join me?
You are.
Okay.
I'm white anyway, though.
All right, anybody else on page 8 of 46? Page 9 of 46. Margaret?
I'm sorry about these things. Heading 255 Railway Walk, etc. 4120 Friends of, we've again got 489.8%. Was that to do with we are getting a grant from somebody? I still don't really completely get why it's I think it came up in the previous resources actually, but
Yeah, we received 2 grants. One from Waitrose, I believe, and another one that Nina sorted out. So one was £3,000 and one's about 600. So it makes the income that we budgeted for look smaller than what we actually received.
So to clarify, they both balance out, so the income on one is much higher and the expenditure on one is much higher because they're on 2 separate budget lines because one's income and one's expenditure.
okay,
But they do balance.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Cemetery Lodge 258, is that because we're partway through the year? It shows 53%. Is that because we're partway through the rental year?
Yes.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
Can't take it off until they've earned it.
No, exactly.
Okay, page 1046.
Hanging baskets, it's under the 301 town centre and events, the first one, no. It's got 0% in hanging baskets, but we definitely had hanging baskets because I've seen the invoices further down, so I couldn't quite work out why that was at a 0.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, it's the income line. It's at 0 because we haven't invoiced for the hanging baskets as yet. I'm waiting for a list of names and addresses because the land's changed so many times. So I have to wait for that before I can invoice them and before we can receive the income.
Okay.
And then once I've done that, we should have £40 per hanging basket.
So, sorry, can I ask a supplementary question? And again, I probably ought to know this already, so I do beg your pardon. How do I know that is income from that?
It's on the. You explain, Jodie.
All the others there say income, but that one doesn't. Yeah, yeah.
Basically, the short answer, the easy answer is any budget code that starts with a 10
Is income,
going
is
to
it?
be income.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're usually at the top of the budgets, and
Right.
the expenditure comes underneath.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Page 10?
I think that's an excellent budget.
Page 11, 46.
I think that's brilliant as well.
Page 12.
What was the one-off events? Was that the
What number?
Yeah.
it's 1473.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that is Jubilee, isn't it?
Yeah, we did a lot of them.
Oh, you're on page 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one-off events, I think we also dipped into that for a little bit of money for the art in the market
That's it.
as well.
We did, just so you know how we did it, about 3, I think, didn't we, in total? So far, we've done art events, which.
We're having half terms.
Yeah, they are,
No, I think
they're very,
Yeah.
very well attended and very
Okay.
easy to put on.
Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Let's check for that one then. 5.2 summary income and expenditure report, can it be? This is page 15. No, page 16. Okay, 5.3 purchase ledger from November and December 2022. That we've done it, that's 2023, I've got that yet. 2022, yeah, we'll get that changed. Appendix C, Robin,
I recognise most of them. There's-
have you got a question?
no, just some, I recognise most of them, there's nothing in there that I.
Question.
Just give it the top hat. What was that for? Was it? It's not one of the mates there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's one.
Different size head.
Yeah.
The group is made.
So they're quite cheap, actually.
It was an Amazon job. We did try and buy locally, but they were hundreds of pounds.
Yeah, it's not.
It came with a can.
Okay, page 18. Margaret.
Well, thank you. Just seeing 3 items against Browns who have now closed, which is a great shame, isn't it?
The Buckingham branch.
Oh, no. I just wonder whether that's going to create more difficulty in terms of buying our policy of buying locally.
Yes,
They have stuff that we couldn't get elsewhere, I guess.
yes, inevitably it will be a problem.
There's 2 other companies.
There's Mole Valley, isn't there? I don't know whether they're similar or not.
There's the, I call Dr. Robinson, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
and up on, up in Mayfield, it's
yeah,
agriculture.
yeah. Many of the things
Up in where, sorry?
in your airdrop,
Oh, Finmere.
Something like that.
Oh, okay.
Something like
yeah,
there's one in London as well, that's it.
yeah, there's one there, and there's also, what's it, screw fix, isn't it, or something along November Road, and there's also, of course, I think there's still somebody supplying stuff along the Gorka Road still, unless they've got, there was a supply there.
There is a motor centre up there, so
There is, yeah, but there are people,
We can do examples to the office if we need any.
I think you know,
It'd be good to keep the pressure down on the Amazon one, the list of Amazon people. Anyway,
Okay, page 19. Page 20. Page 21. 22. Robin, page 22.
that credit rate overpayment, then you get that back.
What's that?
It's got all these books council. Am I reading that correctly? Where it's an overpayment?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Third one down, do you mean?
The 420.
Yeah.
Yeah, third one down.
That's a refund on the cemetery rates.
So come back in
Send
then.
back in,
Yeah, that's fine.
so
Yeah.
take it off the invoice.
I read it right, but it come back in, not waiting, come back in.
Page 23, Margaret.
Well, thank you. Can I just ask, under, I think it's a phone contract, mainstream, but I didn't recognise the number that seems to be alongside it. 824,596.
I think that, is that the one? Sorry, we've got a number of accounts.
Yeah, I saw it was further up as well, but I was able to identify those 2 numbers. Sorry. That's okay.
One of them is, believe it or not, the smart meter at Lowe's Hill has its own phone line and alarm as well.
Okay, so that might be. Thank you.
Page 24. That is it for those. And item 6, we've got the draft 2023-24 budget. 6.1, sorry, receive report from the town clerk. Over to you.
Okay, this is still very much the proposed budget. It will still go to extraordinary full council next week to be looked at alongside the final decision on whether or not to preset for the cemetery before it goes to preset on the 30th of January. So this is really getting towards the last chance. If you want me to look at anything or make changes, I really need to know ASAP. All the individual committees have looked at their individual budgets on a number of occasions, the environment 3 times. So this is all of it put together where we are at the moment. There is going to be an overspend. I think it's actually not as bad as we had thought, but it's going to be around about 11,000. We have the money to cover that. So it's not a crisis, but obviously it's in for that. We've also spent a fair amount of earmark reserves this year, which somewhat reduces how much of an underspend or overspend we've had. We can't keep doing that. So things like the grid repairs at Bourne Park, we've taken a big chunk out of our earmark reserve in order to make that happen. I think we've got a lot of money tucked up in small earmark reserves that really would be better in general reserve. With earmark reserves, obviously, we have the authority to spend that money, whereas with general reserves, we need to come back and actually budget for it. We should have a certain amount in our general reserve. I'm not particularly concerned because we have a large earmark reserve. I hope I'm being clear because I'm saying reserve. I'm not, and you want me to clarify, please. So we are fine, we are steady, but we don't have huge amounts left in the general reserve that we can start slashing in. It's been an extremely difficult and interesting year. The interest rate is obviously starting, the inflation rate, sorry, is starting to flatten a little bit. It's going to come down a little bit. But all of the inflation that we've suffered this year that wasn't budgeted for has to be accounted for on top of next year's budget. So it does mean that if we continue doing what we've budgeted for and we stay the same, we are looking at a very significant, as you can see, rise to precept as a percentage. Slightly less when you look at the actual numbers, but it's still a significant percentage increase that we are considering.
To put this in perspective, if we look at the actual number, it is still less than £1 a week.
We have been as an office repeatedly through every budget line and looked where we can, without needing your permission to have a change of policy, where we can cut, and we have cut back, as you can see, lots of things where there are internal costs we've pulled back. I've budgeted sensibly for the pay rise for next year. It might be I've been overly cautious, but I would rather in another volatile year be on the side of caution. We could try and bring that down, but I would need you to tell me what we would not do. So that would mean bringing down the overtime and looking at reducing a service somewhere along the line. But I have budgeted, I've looked at every single hour that was worked overtime, which is all green spaces because office staff don't get paid overtime. With the green spaces overtime, I've looked at every hour worked. I've looked at what we're planning to do this year. I have reduced slightly from where I was originally because we are looking at reducing our plans a little bit, but I haven't slashed it totally to the bone. So if we have a flooding event, for instance, and we need to put staff out over a weekend or in an evening, there is something in the bag. So it's not a tight to the bone budget, but it is sensible, it's prudent, and it gives us enough wriggle room that if next year is going to be volatile again, I would hope that we aren't going to be in dire straits when we get to this period in 12 months' time. So basically that's where we are. That's on the lead I've had from the committees of what you want to budget for next year. This is the sums as I have them. I'm delighted to our concern to discuss as much as possible because this is a big budget that we're putting through. So I'm desperate that members are confident and happy that this is what we want to do.
To say anything, I think we should list things in budgetary financial terms, not percentages, because percentages are a huge difference to what pounds budget is. Gives a rather inflated thing. What I will say is I've sat through every meeting of every committee and I've listened to every committee discuss the budgets on more than one occasions, and it's normally, I haven't seen any recommendations or changes come from any one of those committees to what it is. There was a strong, the largest budget is the environment budget. There was a strong support from the environment committee to that budget. So making changes now to something which the committees have already discussed, and then going back to them, because I believe if we do that, we need to go back to the committees and explain the changes, because that would be something different than we haven't done. And members have had the opportunity to attend all those meetings, make recommendations, amendments and changes. So I think we should leave this for the meeting next week to discuss the large project. And I think we should I'm comfortable in the sense that we should make sure that when we decide about it, we actually talk about the actual monetary side of it as much as we do the percentage, because I think it's two things are rather different. And I also take note of what the town clerk says about we've gone through 2 years of things that we didn't know we were going to do. And if that said taught us anything, that if we hadn't budgeted how we had budgeted in the previous years, we wouldn't have been able to support Buckinghamshire Council in the way that the members of the council did, which I think we should record our thanks for the entire period of the pandemic. Also, how Buckinghamshire, they've supported quietly Buckinghamshire Council with the support of our Ukrainian refugees. And also this year, of course, our staff stepped up to the plate and worked with our mayor and deputy mayor on both the joy of celebrating Her Majesty the Queen's celebration, but also commemorating Her Majesty the Queen's passing, which is a very unusual year. And our staff have been nothing more than tremendous in that respect and actually getting all that done. And it's not been an easy year. All those things have had the accountancy things, finding money, finding resources, and being able to do it. Now, there is a great danger in not realising what a good thing you've got. So I think we should take this and note these budgets and move it to next week to discuss those big issues. Either combine the big budget number on its own, which is the one figure, which is the cemetery. But I will say, as a local person, that when we originally put that project forward, and it needs to be said that it was quite a number of years ago, we waited for 5 years for planning permission. The cemetery, we waited 5 years for planning permission, and had the world been perfect, we probably wouldn't be talking about it tonight. We'd be talking about the running of it. So all those things, and plus the dalliance with the economy, has affected it. So I think we have to take that all into account and focus on where it is. And I do believe it's a 160-year project we're talking about, not a project for 1 year. This is something, and the age profile of the town and everyone else is quite a big consideration. We have to think very carefully how we provide for that, especially as many of the village and church cemeteries are filling up. In a parish, which I will not say where it was, I spoke to the church diocese about extending their cemetery, and the answer I got back was no, they're not willing to extend their cemetery because of the value of the land. So I think we do propose we note the budget and take those big issues, decisions, discuss them next week in more detail.
Angie and then Addy.
Thank you. I just want to recommend or suggest that 1.2, where we say the increase of £45 or 25%, if you can also put in how much a week figure. You know, then when you put that figure, it doesn't feel such an impact. Oh, you know, if we just put that one line in, or one figure in.
I think it's a good suggestion. Addy?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, we are not in normal circumstances with the inflation and everything. I would ideally not look forward to an increase in precept, but I think we have situations which are beyond our control. I must commend the clerk there and the team for their support to this budget, and also members for some different committees. I agree with Robin that we can't make amendments to the budget, because that would be better to discussion on this committee. But having gone through it myself, I don't think there's anything else we can cut in there without requiring services. So I am happy to support this. I also do take Andy's comment, or Councillor Myers' comments on.
Handy's one.
And that's right.
Not too formal in resources.
Right. His comments with regards to the weekly. But I think we'll just wait to see the result of the poll we're taking on the cemetery to see how much will actually have to propose. The other thing I was looking at was 1.7, but when I then read it again, I didn't understand what that was. I think it's either or, isn't it? Right. So
Yes.
that's fine.
This is not widely divergent from what we've heard. I agree with all those comments. We are in an unusual year. I think I just wanted to say or reassure everybody in this committee, and I will do this again when we're talking at full council, that the Environment Committee, which does have the biggest budget by the very nature of what falls under it, looked very, very carefully at every single line of the budget to see what savings could be made. And we did indeed find £20,000 worth of savings. So we did our bit. That, of course, isn't completely eaten up by the things that cost significantly more than we anticipated and by the new cemetery. I would say that the people of Buckingham and the surrounding parishes need somewhere to bury their dead.
Yeah.
And that is something that obviously we will await the consultation, but it is an important point to make, I think. If we can't provide that, then, you know, that is such a fundamental service. It's difficult to see how you could not do that.
Thank you for that. Okay, so are we happy to go with recommendations that are in this report? Robin?
With the proposal, which not secondly, Councillor Mari Andy made, that we change the proposal to around per week pound.
Add in the-
Yeah, I think it's a very good proposal. But I think,
Yeah.
and the large discussion around that will be for the 24th before the precinct meeting, and I think that prejudging that today will throw that meeting to askew.
Okay, so I'm happy to propose that we accept the recommendations in this report. Is that seconded? Okay, anybody from that side?
I think Councillor Bradford's first.
I think so. All right, so show of hands, please, in favour.
That is unanimous, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Town Clerk, for
Yeah.
all your work on
And I
it.
also,
And Jodie?
and
Yeah,
Jodie,
yeah.
because Jodie's done a lot of work on these figures, and we should record our thanks in the minutes, please.
Definitely.
I might actually say this, I mean, Jodie has been a huge input. Steve's had an input, very helpful. Louise has had an input. This is a team effort. It's absolutely not just.
Just you.
In which case, we would like to thank the team.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jodie always knows the answer when you go in the office. But you don't
That's very true. Right, so on to item 7, bank reconciliations of cash. Verbal updates. So I went into the office as was agreed at our last meeting, sat with Jodie, I think we left about an hour maybe. Went through receipts and accounts and sheets of paper, and everything tallied up very nicely. So that job is done. So thank you again, Jodie, for your time.
Excellent.
Yeah, all these things take time and have to be done properly. So.
I do indeed, yeah. And it's after that, I was sitting here with everybody, well, it would have been an hour sitting here with everybody with all the seats. Right, item 8, payment pricing. See the report. It's R13322. Okay. Right, so we've got a recommendation here that we increase the chamber hiring rate. What are members' thoughts and feelings on this?
It depends when you look at it, what percentages. Rates.
Yeah.
I think it's still quite reasonable. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree with you, don't want to.
Councillor Brown,
I was just going to say proportionate and reasonable.
yeah. Robin?
I think that this space is an excellent space, and if you spend time doing it up, it's even better space. You know, thankfully we've got it, so I don't think it's we own it now for once. We didn't before, so I think it's proportionate. It will generate a small income, cover the cost of coming in.
Howard?
When something hires the chamber, do they get the technology with it?
They do, charge, and that's not actually on here. I don't think we charge an induction fee of £1 or so just to cover Bethany's time coming over here to show you how to use it.
No, what you actually do, what we actually do is charge an extra hour.
Sorry, that's wrong. Thank you. I knew you did something.
It's £1 sounded a mention.
An extra round.
Sometimes it's an extra £1 got anything.
I was just going to say, no, that's not right. It's different.
So they could though.
It was a flashback to the time when things were.
Okay, so we happy for the chamber hire rate to go up and Lake Hill as well to go up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Didn't Lake Hill just go up recently?
Sorry, again,
It
sorry.
would have increased Lake Hill recently.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can't remember that.
Yeah.
this,
Margaret.
this is, they've only put those figures in as a comparison. They have already been agreed. This is for the council chamber.
I know it sounds, but resources are responsible for the council chamber, whereas Lace Hill falls under environment. That's why they're in two different committees.
So can I have a show of hands for everybody to agree with my rates?
That's everybody again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on to compliments and complaints, 1.1 appendix E. Having left down these, what do members think, Robin?
I think many of them are things that I've read before.
Previous years.
Previous years,
Yeah.
and without going into the particular things, I think that we should agree that the committee takes those discussions up where relevant with support of the officers around the things that were mentioned. I don't think we should name the organisations particularly. They're constructive. I think if there's anything we've got good working relationship with those organisations. I think we should take it through the officers and tender it on the appropriate committee, which are both of the ones I was looking at are within events.
I mean, I think being responded to by officers.
Yeah, but if there's anything else, we should just take those comments to the committee then, if you know what I mean, so they're aware of
We'll
them.
continue doing comments from members and
Yeah.
then I'm happy with that. So is there any other comments on the complaints?
I was sorry to see that in January 23, somebody's got an ex concern about the live reindeer at the Christmas lights again. And it was somebody who wasn't actually there, somebody who's been told something about it. But I think it's been answered very fully with previous comments. And sadly, I think it's probably a case of you're just never going to please all the people all of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite.
And I'll say the same with things like the charter fair, we've had complaints before, and it'd be exactly the same thing where we've, the officer's gone back and explained, and you're never going to please everybody. And with a town that's growing, this is going to happen more, unfortunately. So you're right, Sue. Margaret, did you have your hand up?
No, I was scratching my ear.
Robin.
I'd just like to say that I personally enjoyed meeting the reindeer, and I thought that when you looked at the amount of children, it was an officer's initiative with that reindeer to come from, it came from the office, the amount of children that went to that reindeer graduated to it and enjoyed it, that it was a great addition and it gave a lot of pleasure to a lot of people. So one person doesn't like it compared to all those children, which we do Christmas lights, but I think in proportion, we made the right decision.
Yeah.
That's it.
I would like to raise the observation that there seem to be remarkably few complaints in this list, and we should be pleased about that. And you know, all the people who did not complain about something seem to have thought it was kind of okay, or possibly great. So if there are individual complaints that raise a serious issue, of course we do take them very seriously. But I think on the whole, the number of complaints is such that we can be quite pleased with that.
I'd agree with that comment. Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you. Just really in relation to the reindeer, I think it's a valid point and it's something we do need to give proper consideration to if we're going to have live animals involved in any kind of event, to make sure that the welfare standards are satisfied. And I know I spent quite a bit of time around the reindeer, and it never occurred to me that they weren't being properly cared for. They were quite the opposite, actually. They had plenty of space. The handlers were always there. They weren't sort of just left to their own devices, and they were being dealt with in a very sensitive manner. But I do think it's a valid point about animal welfare.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were treated well, yeah. Try to discipline the reindeer.
Sorry, Adi.
I'm actually going to go on the reindeer and match into Anya's point and say I think we should commend the environment team and also our clerks team as well, because we've got no complaints from their angle at all.
No.
So that's quite a lot.
Slightly clarify, so the environment does have its own separate complaints and reports list, which is people reporting dogs, etc. So they are on a separate one. This is everything but environment. As far as I know.
Because I was about to, I was impressed. I was like,
Right, Howard.
Yeah, I'll just make you aware that I understand that at the Christmas parade, licensing in Buckinghamshire raised the fact that animals being used in the Christmas parade, and it should be looked at. However, after 3 hours, they will choose that comment.
I thought they would. Because they have the right one.
Well, 2 horses and the dogs, actually dogs didn't turn up anyway. Obviously, there's a licensing aspect when you have animals at an event. I think it starts getting a little bit petty, you know, talking about an hour after parade.
Yeah.
But you know, you have to be very careful as they can be placed.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you, Robin.
Having worked a large portion of my life, and I have with animals. No, I didn't say that. I've been animals. I've worked and well qualified, and I've got the qualification in order to do handling animals. I must say the handling of the horses at the Christmas parade is nothing more than professional, and I know how you should do that, and they were really good. And the handling of the reindeer was quite consensual in the sense that the reindeer were travelled in keeping with all the regulations of travelling into it, whatever, with being divided in the actual vehicle and whatever. I went in and had a look, and also we were always lucky because the male reindeer still kept his antlers because they lose them now around that period of time. So we were really lucky that the male reindeer still got his antlers because they shed them that time of year. And the reason they shed them is because in the wild, it allows the female reindeer to actually get a bit more of the food, and they don't get bullied off the food by the male reindeer because they're carrying the calf the next year, and the males at that point are seen to be of no use whatsoever. So the females,
That's what they have antlers.
that's why they have antlers, to get rid of the males.
Thank you.
Make sure you minute that point.
Right, item 10, civic dates. So report from the events coordinator. Robin.
I just propose we agree them because
Yeah.
they are what we
Yeah,
can do.
they are.
And I just in conversations about, and I believe that there's been conversations about the civic day to do with coronation. So
Yeah.
and I believe that we've built up quite a good working relationship to the town clerk, and I know that Mayor will be heavily involved in that sense that I'm confident that that's the right thing to do. And
Thank you.
I'd like to suppose we agree with these things.
Happy?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, updates from representatives and outside bodies, item 11. Does anybody have anything they wish to inform us about?
Nothing to do with this committee.
No? Thanks. Abby, nothing?
I can inform you about things, but you've got absolutely
No,
nothing to do
fine.
with it.
Thanks, Anne. Anything on the action reports? Page 45. Page 46.
And they're all business.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, everybody. I don't have any chair's announcements. Just say thank you, Jodie, for coming tonight. When you come having me here.
And we were much better behaved. In case Jodie sees me mother.
Right, so the next meeting is the 6th of March, and we're going to go into private session next. Yeah, you can't leave just yet, Howard. Right.